Hi, welcome to the Spiritual Connection Show. I'm your host, Katie Augustyn. So I'm a transformation coach, I'm a spiritual energy healer, I'm a shamanic practitioner, and I'm the spiritual head of the Transformation Center CT, which is located in Westport, Connecticut. At the center, we do a variety of things. We have workshops and trainings. We have satsang once a month, which is Sanskrit for in the company of the truth, where we do some meditation and chanting, just a really hour to spend together. And you'll end up the evening being uplifted and rejuvenated. So you're welcome to come to that. It's on Wednesday evenings, once a month. So we also do shamanic clinics at the center, and we do those once a month. So check out our website, which is transformationcenterct.com, and you can keep up to date that way. So, you know, the Spiritual Connection Show is all about connection, obviously. It's about connecting with each other, as well as allowing us to connect more fully with our own spiritual selves. And through the guests that I have on the show each week, you know, listen to their stories, you know, find out about their spiritual journey, what they're up to, what they're doing, and you'll learn a lot, not only about them, but really about yourself as well. So I welcome you to be open to that as you watch. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. So my guest tonight is Veronica Sommer. Hey.
Hi there.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so happy you're available to do it. You know, this is the first time I'm meeting Veronica, so it's really special because everything that we talk about will be new to me too. So I'm excited about that. But you know what? I'm just going to read a little bit about you for our audience so they can get to know you before we get started. Just a little bit. So Veronica is a certified coach. And she's also founder of the Kindness Solution, which I love that name. We're going to hear all about that in a minute. And she's the mom of a teen and a tween. She works with middle-aged parents who are overworked, overwhelmed, and burned out, and helps them move from that stress and anxiety and scarcity to grace, abundance, and creative self-expression. Awesome. So they can boldly create the life they know they are meant to live on their own terms. Wow. So being a coach is so exciting, isn't it?
We
really
get to
do this.
It's
I mean,
awesome.
It's so, yeah, I love it.
It's an honor, for
I love
sure.
coaching. Well, we're going to learn about that in a few minutes. But, you know, first question that I always like to ask my guests so we can, you know, hear your personal story is tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey thus far. Anything you want to share, really. I know. Okay, we do have a time limit.
We don't have that much time. However, I'll try to answer that in an abbreviated version. Yeah. So, well, I grew up Catholic and grew up going to church. My mom was in the choir at St. Mary's on Greenwich Avenue. And we spent a great deal of time there. We lived 2 blocks from there. She was on the parish council. I made all of my sacraments there. And prayer and faith were always just a part of our life. And I think I just always felt a deep connection to God and to, I always felt protected. Yeah. And so that's, you know, definitely, you know, the way that my mom brought me up. And it's so funny to think about now. Much of my family is in recovery in AA, and so I also, growing up, heard words about turning it over to your higher power, and you know, put it in your God box, give it to God, and so just that, you know, letting go. Right. So that was a beautiful foundation to have. Awesome. And I also remember my mom and my aunts going into their room. They were like, "Okay, we're going to go meditate," which, you know, like, it just sounds so funny now because I thought, I was like, that's cool. I certainly was never interested in meditating with them. I didn't really think it was weird, but I didn't realize that I would end up, you know, becoming and having my own meditation practice.
That is, because that was a long time ago?
Yes,
And
yes.
you didn't hear a lot about meditation when we were
30,
growing up.
Yeah, yeah, I'm 48, so so it's cool to think about just all of my family members' influence. My grandmother was a social worker, and she had Deepak Chopra on her bookshelf, and Wayne Dyer, and Carolyn Mace, and so I even, at I would say high school age, was exposed to, the concept of being able to heal yourself and the mind-body connection and metaphysical principles. So that it's just been a continuum. It's just been.
That's very fortunate. I have to say I have not met that many people who had it all come together like that for them when they were younger.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually stop and start, more like that.
Yeah.
Even because I was also raised as a Catholic, but no one in my family did meditation or had, good books on the shelves, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it just wasn't in the the current at that time. So that's really cool.
I know. I feel grateful that I had that. And then in my early 20s, I got into sales, and so I got exposure to Tony Robbins and power of positive thinking and those types of principles. So it's kind of like all of my. If you look at my bookshelf, it's a very wide range of self-help books only. I don't have.
You don't have time to read fiction?
No, absolutely not. Nor do I have a desire to, because I'm a truth seeker. I love learning, and I love that constant and never-ending improvement principle.
Yeah.
And so I would say the biggest influencers in my life have been A Course in Miracles, Marianne Williamson.
Yes.
Debbie Ford and the shadow work, Esther Hicks.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So, it's wild. And then, workshops and seminars and webinars and trips to Kripalu and Omega.
So you've been doing this continually pretty much your whole life.
I mean, I would say 25 years of personal and professional development.
That's so awesome. It's like you were really on the cutting edge a while ago, and you just kept it going.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Yes. And then did your career form along those lines as well? Because you're a coach now, but you haven't been doing that very long, or what?
No, I just launched my coaching business. So I fell into recruiting. I was in sales, and I was interviewing for a new sales position, and like 5 different recruiters said, "Have you ever thought about recruiting?" So I said, "Perhaps I should." So it was the late 90s, and I fell into technology recruiting, and ended up starting I worked for 3 companies and then started my own recruiting firm in 2003.
Oh, cool.
And I have 23 years of recruiting experience. So I am, it's just so funny. You teach what you have to learn, and all the signs when you start doing the work on yourself. And have you read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron?
I know the book. I've not read it, but I know a lot of people really love it.
Yeah, it's really transformational because it's has questions at the end of each chapter to go through self-discovery and exploration and excavation to really get in touch and really remember who you are, because we're always in there. It's just accessing and remembering. And so, of course, it makes sense that I would want to coach, given the fact that, I've exposed myself to all this material, and it's helped me make so many transformations in my life. So now I want to support people doing the same.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that, so I went to a Tony Robbins conference in 2011, and shortly after that is when I recognized that my recruiting career wasn't in full alignment with what I wanted to do going forward. So it took me 9 years, to actually make the leap. I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition in 2014, and that's another reason I want to coach, is because it doesn't have to take that long. It's really, I can help people shorten that process of supporting them to do what they know
Right.
in their heart they really want to do.
Right. I think
You
that's what's great about coaching is that we don't. It's not that you're changing anything, or you're just helping people access what they already have.
Yes.
And not telling them what to do, not giving advice. It's just like that's what I love about it is asking those empowering questions so then they can see it.
Yeah.
Because I think that's part of the issue is that it's hard for us to see what what the possibilities are sometimes, and it's really great to have someone bring that out.
100%. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars with different coaches over time for at different periods of my life to get that support.
So
but it's always in there. The answers are always in there.
Yeah.
We're always constantly looking outside.
Yeah, and you've done a lot of that. So when you were a recruiter, did you feel that you were partially coaching, serving that role, or?
Certainly to a degree. I mean, that was one of the things I loved about recruiting was going through that inquiry process and understanding people's story and helping them, transition to a new role and helping them really identify even what that meant to them. So it's always been a part of my...
That's what I was
Yeah.
kind of assuming, because you're not going to do something totally antithetical to who you are.
Yeah.
But you just kind of
It's
went
a natural transition.
Yeah. And so how did you decide on coaching as your next step?
Well, honestly, I've known, like I said, for a number of years, and I was just holding myself back. I was letting fear get in the way, and that was mostly around living in Fairfield County, being the primary earner in my family. Having just when I realized I had just bought a very large, expensive house in Fairfield, and all those realistic constraints. I mean, we have a family to support. We live in an expensive area, so it's really deconstructing and giving myself the permission to A, say that this is what I want to do, and B, believe that I can make an equivalent amount of money or even more doing what I love. Because you assume that you have to take a pay cut, or certainly there may be during that transition time of building a new business, but if you can be successful in a career that you don't even feel super aligned with anymore, then I have to believe that I can be successful doing something that I absolutely love and feel destined to do,
That's a beautiful way of putting it, really. Yeah. I think that's a really good reminder for people who are kind of on the cusp of maybe they want to change, but they, fear kind of enters into it, but to really think about the possibilities, what there is there, that doing something that you love.
Yep.
And in a way, you were fortunate that you kind of knew what you wanted to do, because I think I've met a lot of people who they only know that they're not aligned with what they're doing now.
Yep.
But they don't really know what's out there, what's the next step for them.
Yeah. It is. It goes back to that inquiry process and excavation, because there could be passions and, interests that have lie dormant for a period of time.
Yes.
But when they start doing that work, it's so obvious,
Yeah, it usually is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how that works.
Like, I don't know. Oh, I actually apparently do know.
And sometimes I like to start with helping them identify their core values, because a lot of us go through our life not really knowing what our core values are. I mean, I don't think I really thought about it until not that long ago. I think it was actually when I was doing my coaching training with the Coaching for Transformation.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Well,
it's really helpful.
We all have gone through conditioning of the culture, and so that's why it's so powerful to say, what are my beliefs, and do they even belong to me? Like, or did they come from a parent or a teacher or whatever it is? And then do I believe that? Like, is that true for me today at age whatever and where I am in my life now? And being willing to say that's not a good fit anymore. You know, and I think I mentioned to you, I'm just going through a divorce now, and I've been with my husband for 31 years, 22 married, but 16 and 19. And there's lots of good in that relationship, and we have created 2 beautiful children, and there wasn't fighting, and there, you know, we have very happy life from the outside looking in. It just wasn't we grew in different ways, and it wasn't a fantastic cultural fit anymore. And it's hard and scary to recognize that and say it, but the truth really does set you free. You know.
So then you did get a divorce. Yeah. And how old are your kids now?
They're 14 and 11.
11.
And it's very amicable, and we sit at games together, and you know, it's been pretty seamless because we've gone through this, you know, unconscious coupling process, which for those who are not aware of that book by Catherine Woodward Thomas, and it just helps you go through the process mindfully and kindly, and really just honor what you've created together, and you know, close that chapter in a loving, healthy way.
That's awesome. And what's it called again?
Conscious uncoupling.
Conscious uncoupling. So that's good for people to know about. Well, it doesn't surprise me knowing, I mean, I don't know you that well, but I really feel like, you know, I get this sense of who you are and how that would work for you.
Thank you.
That's really great. Well, you know, you mentioned the word kindness a few times, and I know that's in your founder of the Kindness Solution.
Yes.
So what is the Kindness Solution?
It's a truly excellent question. I've been piecing it together for the last 7 years or so.
Okay.
So it's funny because your show is called Spiritual Connection, and I have, if you go back into my journals over the last seven years or so, I guess 9, but really understanding that any suffering that we go through as humans is a result of a spiritual disconnection, and losing touch with source, God, higher power, the divine, whatever you want to call it, but you know, kind of forgetting and then remembering again. And so for me, in the process of running a business and having 2 children and a history of workaholic tendencies and perfectionism and all of that, like, it all built up, and I burned out basically, and I realized that I was spiritually disconnected. Like I said, I have this faith and I have this strong connection that I know is there, but I, in the busyness of life, kind of lost that connection. And so we can always bring ourselves back. And so that's that process of going inward and remembering the truth of who we are. And I think on a bigger picture perspective, so with my coaching, the Kindness Solution is working with those people in their mid-40s who are kind of feeling that disillusionment and lack of fulfillment of, like, okay, they bought the American dream, they got the house, they got the car, they did all the stuff, it looks great, except they don't feel super happy. In fact, they might even be feeling really depressed and exhausted. You know?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a continuum.
Without a doubt. So you know, so there's that. So there's kindness toward the self and the mind, body, spirit, and really truly learning self-care, you know, from your thoughts, from the food that you eat, from the movement that you give yourself, from the permission that you give yourself to do things that make you happy.
Yeah.
You know, because that often falls by the wayside in the achieving and accumulation of stuff over your 20s and 30s, you know. So for me personally, going inward and learning how to be kind to myself truly, and then extending that in my family with my kids, you know, creating sacred rituals, helping them reconnect, particularly in this digital culture. And like I said, 14 and 11, so I am in the thick of the phones, the apps, the stuff. And so, but you know, when my son that's 14 now, it was in first grade, I started a Kindness Matters movement at his school and in the town of Fairfield, in the hopes to help kids remember that everything we do matters. What we say, what we think, how we act, and positive or negative. So let's look for ways to uplift, encourage, and inspire people. But at a bare minimum, let's not hurt other people's spirits, and you know, really live from that do no harm philosophy.
Wow. So that's awesome. So you were a little bit ahead of the curve on that one too, it seems like, because you know, I've read recently other places are starting that, but that was pretty new in that time.
Yeah, I think I just was taken aback that there was already talking of bullying and anti-bullying and everything. I'm like, they're in first grade.
In first grade.
Like,
wow.
who's bullying? And so, you know, they're 6. And so I went to our principal and I said, it would be great to talk about kindness proactively.
Right, I was just thinking the same. Proactive is the thing, and be explicit about it, because you know, I think my sense is, because we've been in Fairfield County, we moved here right before my son started kindergarten, so that many years, he's 28 now, that it's not really talked about, or it wasn't in those days, you know, talked about at home so much. And, you know, maybe you get some of that in school, maybe you don't. So I think it's really great to really bring it to the forefront and be proactive and explicit about how you treat people.
Right. And it's so basic, but it particularly with the mental health challenges that we're having across the board, but certainly on the rise with children and suicide. It's like, let's not ever have someone take their life because somebody was bullying them. Like that's just not acceptable.
No,
you know. And so that awareness, I think, is really important for people to realize the power that they have to make a difference, you know.
Because it all starts here. I mean, who we are can make a difference to other people, and you know, even the words, the actions, the deeds, but it all starts here. So
it does.
I think we have to believe it.
It does.
And really, you know, allow our kids to be who they are, yet be aware of how they affect everybody else.
Right.
You know, that's really important.
That's why I tell my kids, you don't have to be best friends with everybody, but you do have to be nice to everyone.
Yeah.
You know, and look at people in the eye and say hi to them in the hallway. And, you know, like sometimes I'll say to my 14-year-old, like, oh, how's so-and-so from elementary school? He's like, I don't know. I was like, well, don't you have a class with him? You know, because they might have one class in high school together now. He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, did you ask him about blah, blah, blah? And he's like, no. I'm like, why not? Like, you went to school for 6 years together and then another 3 years of middle school. So you don't have to, like, hang out on the weekends in order to be like, how's this going? You know, if you know they play a sport or they're in drama or they play an instrument, like, think of something to ask them.
Right, because the connection is what's missing, I think, in the schools. You know, it seems to me that the kids tend to get in their little groups.
Very much so.
And if you're not in a group, then you're not connected.
Right.
You know, they just started a new program at this high school in Westport, and all the teachers agreed to it, where they're taking groups of kids and they're like just talking with them. So they're having, it's just like an open conversation. It has a name, of course I forgot the name, but it's something like connections, but that's not it.
Nice.
Yeah, and so it's just like, it's not a formal counseling program, but it's just an opportunity for the kids to be in a place where an adult is, you know, listening to them and the other kids, and it may not even be kids they know.
Right. Which is even better, you know,
Exactly.
because this fitting in is, and you know, being like all the same, like why do we all want to be close to each other?
I know.
Let's celebrate each other's differences. Let's think it's awesome that you play a sport and you play an instrument and you do drama.
What a great message. I know, because I remember when my son was younger, that it was a very strong message, and he was kind of an outlier. He was definitely an outlier, and all he said was, I just want to be like everyone else. You know, so somewhere along the way, he had internalized that different is bad, and so then I kind of made it a little bit of my mission to say, well, different is good, you know? But once, it's really hard to turn that ship, you know, once they get ostracized for their being different.
Right.
I mean,
it is hard. And even the kids who are on board with what we're saying in the peer environment, it's hard to break away from that. So even if they notice that somebody's sitting alone and they do feel kind of badly, to have the courage to go, say, come sit.
Takes a lot.
And that's actually the theme of World Kindness USA, which we could talk about later if we have time. But it's the courage to be kind. But it's you know, basically just that, and that's in the workplace, it's in politics, it's everywhere. You know. Yeah.
I think they also started a thing at Staples. I think it was a club actually, and it was called "It's Cool to Be Kind" with the K.
Is that Staples?
Yeah,
I heard that.
I'm pretty sure that was not
that
long ago.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else that you're involved in now that you want to share with us about how to spread this? You know, or
yeah, I think one other thing I want to mention about the kind of bigger picture mission of the Kindness Solution is to help people look at every aspect of their life through the lens of kindness. So we talked about self and others, but from a bigger picture perspective, it's really all living beings.
Yeah,
you know,
not just
it's
humans, but everything.
Animals, it's the environment,
Right.
and redirecting our spending toward companies that are creating products and services that are socially conscious and that are not doing harm, you know, and really bringing that full circle into your daily living and making those conscious decisions. And the final thing about that is really like learning to be an advocate for yourself, for the things that concern you, that madden you, that, you know, sadden you, whatever it is. You know, I got my first exposure to advocacy in around 2011 for GMO-free Connecticut. And that was a great foundation for me to learn that I have a voice, that I can write my legislators, that I can, you know, show up at an event and say, no, this is not
That's
okay.
That's a great point.
You know?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And we are going to have to wrap up.
Okay.
It goes by so fast.
I know.
Thank you, Veronica. It was such a pleasure meeting you and having you on the show.
It was delightful meeting you too. Thank you.
And thanks to our audience for joining us for this episode. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Veronica as much as I did. See you the next time. I'm your host, signing off, Katie Augustyn. Thanks and good night and blessings.